Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah. And also note that you have 10 minutes.
Yes,
And any other senator speaking 5 minutes, including the seconder.
the second.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this is a very hard motion to move. It is a very hard one because matters femicide.
You first, just read the.
I'm gonna go. I'm
then
gonna
you
do
will
that.
give the state the issues that you have.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. As I say, this is a sensitive motion to move, and just as I said, that this is pursuant to Standing Order number 37, and that the Senate do now adjourn, as had requested, to discuss a definite matter of urgent national importance, namely the rising case of violent murder in the country, mainly targeting young women and girls. The most recent, Mr. Speaker, being the murder of 3 women in Isili on 22nd October, which is actually the time that they were discovered, but they disappeared on 21st October 2024. And that is Dahabo Dawood Said, Amina Abdi Rashid Dahir, and Nuseiba Abdi Mohammed. And a 23-year-old girl, Miss Seth Njeri Nyakio, in Thika, Kiambu County on 14th October 2024. Mr. Speaker, as I said, this is a very hard motion to move because it breaks my heart. Mr. Speaker, the young lady, to start with, Seth Nyakio Njeri, the 23-year-old young lady, Mr. Speaker, had just graduated from Zetech University, Mr. Speaker. And if you look at journalistic conversation and the news that we have been receiving, Mr. Speaker, is that she was also the daughter of Lucy Njeri, who is actually an MCA in Kirinyaga. Somebody that you would think that because of her position in the society, our own family would not experience such a brutal murder of our own daughter. And Mr. Speaker, before I even go further, let me just take this opportunity to pass my deepest condolences to the family of Lucy Njeri and to the family of Dahabo Dawood Said for this extreme pain and extreme stress and untold suffering that those families have gone through, the experience of such losses in our borders, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, as I say this, Mr. Speaker, it is even sadder to hear the story of Dahabo Dawood Said in Isili, Mr. Speaker. This is a wonderful woman and a lady who was killed alongside our own daughter and her niece. Mr. Speaker, when these stories are told, Mr. Speaker, it's very difficult to know the truth because of the laxity and the lack of proper intelligence shared with the public and even shared with families, Mr. Speaker. But I went to Isili, Mr. Speaker, the other day, just to try and understand really what happened. And Mr. Speaker, while this might not be, a confirmed story, but one of the conversations that I had was that this is a lady who went to a mall in the evening. The daughter and the niece were actually in the house. And then the story is told of how perhaps the daughter and the niece went to pick her from the mall, which in my own humble deduction could be that their killers might have lured them, having got the hold of the mother, and then got hold of all of them. And Mr. Speaker, it's very sad because you hear that after they were killed, Mr. Speaker, their body parts were found in very different locations, Mr. Speaker. the body of Dahabo was found in Machakos, Mr. Speaker, picked from Isili, driven, or whichever means that was used, taken through the trauma of passing different places, Mr. Speaker, and found in Machakos, mutilated without a head. Mr. Speaker, the body of the daughter, I think, is then found in Bahati in Makadara, Mr. Speaker. Then the body of the niece, Mr. Speaker, is then found in 6th Avenue in Parklands, Mr. Speaker. The images of how far apart these bodies are found, having been lured all of them together, Mr. Speaker, begs the question of, do we really have a country? Do we really have a country when a whole family can be picked by murderers, killed in different locations, and their bodies mutilated and put in different locations, Mr. Speaker? The distance from Nairobi to Machakos, the distance from Isili to Makadara, the distance from Isili to Parklands, begs the question of what happened to surveillance in this country and what happens to policing and monitoring in this country that can be able to guarantee our people security, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, this is a bit of domestic violence that has escalated to the point that it is no longer just a domestic violence issue on women, but also porosity in terms of security that has now come to the point that we can see a country taking killing of women and killing of people as a pleasurable thing, Mr. Speaker, or Madam Speaker now. The killing of women in this country is becoming a pleasurable thing because we do not see equal response in terms of the rule of law on killers such as this. And my fear, Madam Speaker, is that if we allow this to continue, then we see it now extending to all genders, Madam Speaker. Recently in Siaya, Madam Speaker, a very well-established gentleman, Willis Ayeko, was found dead, killed in the same brutal manner that we see with the killing of women in this country. And the worst thing is that the security infrastructure ends only at giving simple journalistic updates on simple accounts and leaving it as a situation whereby we will be able to do further investigations so that these murders ends at conversations by authorities on a hope of further investigations to be done, Madam Speaker. I think, because of pressure of time, Madam Speaker, that this House must take the issue of this femicide very seriously. We did a serious resolution in this House on police abductions. We did a serious resolution in this House in the wake of Gen Zs on brutal murders that are going on by the police. I think this House must also do a serious motion and a resolution on actions that must be taken to be able to make sure that this country ends and puts an end to these brutal murders that we see in our country, Madam Speaker. It cannot be that we keep on being comfortable, and I don't know whether we are comfortable as a country because it doesn't reach our own homes. I'm imagining the pain and agony that families such as this end up having, Madam Speaker, because I think that this brings untold trauma and stigma to these families that they can never be able to recover from. Is it that the people who are in power today, starting from the presidency, coming to the security infrastructure, the IG of police, is it that these things look normal because they're not in their families? Madam Speaker, I want to beg this House that as a House of Senate that has shown very serious resolve on dealing with issues of national importance such as this, dealing with crises such as this, Madam Speaker, that we must come to the rescue of the nation and do a serious resolution of the House that can demand of our security infrastructure to put an end to this problem. Even if it means that we're going to put maximum surveillance in communities, Madam Speaker, I hope that the Senate can come to the rescue of these families. And therefore, I beg to move this motion, Madam Speaker, and would want to hear the insight of my colleague senators, and therefore request the wonderful Senator Hamida to second this motion. I thank you.
Thank you, Senator Eddy. Senator Hamida, you may take the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to thank, as I support, I want to echo Senator Eddy, and also appreciate the motion that he has brought forward, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the recent wave of bizarre abductions is really gruesome, painful. May I proceed? It's really, the abductions, Madam Speaker, has really been gruesome murders and have really swept across the nation. It is really disturbing, and it's indeed a matter of urgency for us to discuss, Madam Speaker. In the past weeks, we learned about the horrific deaths, the same what Senator Eddy has said about the three women, Madam Waris Daoud and her daughter, Nasiba, and her cousin, her daughter Nasiba, yes, and her niece Amina. It has really we have really tried to console or to condole with the families. Madam Speaker, we have seen recent, and we keep on wondering why the women, why women, and why will they go through that pain, Madam Speaker? Madam Speaker, it's also an opportunity for me to condole and also I'm also grieving about my neighbor, Willis. Willis Onyango Ayeko is my neighbor, and his wife is my friend, Esther Ayeko. Madam Speaker, it's always painful going to their place every evening, looking at her and the grief that she's going through. Madam Speaker, I think Ayeko has made, he's always on social media, so you can imagine the trauma the kids go through every day. So I remember last night, Esther was really struggling for her kids not to come downstairs to watch TV. Imagine they were supposed to be together. Esther was supposed to be with her husband, and the husband had just gone for a burial that we all know one of our friends had lost the mother, Agina. And after leaving the Matanga place, so he had to travel. He was traveling. He was going to travel elsewhere. And there he was, So the next day, everyone knew that, he had already reached his destination. And the next day, they started calling and looking for Willis. Then later on, of course, we realized whatever happened. So the mutilated body, you can imagine, actually, it is, Madam Speaker, whenever, I discuss about Willis, it's so painful. He was such a humble neighbor and a good friend. And they mutilated the body in pieces, that it was so inhuman. These victims, seriously, Madam Speaker, like in recent months, have endured an imaginable suffering, with the bodies bearing signs of of the brutal torture, Madam Speaker. The trend is not just tragic, Madam Speaker, but then painful to the family, and also a reflection of an escalating crisis in our society, Madam Speaker. In October alone, over 20 murders have been realized, documented across the country, just in October. So I feel strongly that this number alone, it is a concern, but then with the sheer brutality, Madam Speaker, with which crimes are committed and no suspects have been, apprehended so far. So how are we expected to explain to our communities, to our families, and they look up to us, for that support and maybe protection? How are we going to explain to them, Madam Speaker? Madam Speaker, I must underscore that this alarming reality within right now in our society, the law enforcement agencies are falling short in providing safety and justice to our citizens, Madam Speaker. Moreover, the law enforcement agencies must work to rebuild with the committees they serve. And as I conclude, Madam Speaker, my time is up. Let's take a moment to acknowledge the pain and suffering of the families that have lost their lives, Madam Speaker. I was surprised when I asked the DCI the other day when you were at JLAC, what are you doing so far? An MCA they found a mutilated body after 1.5 months. And when I asked, Madam Speaker, about the MCA, they said, until now they're not sure because they are unable to do the DNA. Imagine matching the body of the deceased. So how painful is that, Madam Speaker? This is an MCA. An MCA at least needed, to be protected, and that's a leader. So it's unfortunate that even the DCI, the DPP, and the rest cannot explain the murders that are going on, Madam Speaker. This one, we condemn the brutality, Madam Speaker, and this, the culprits have to be brought to book, Madam Speaker. It is seriously, it is painful to all our communities. You can imagine the Willie story. It's all over news every day. And until now, we are just being told stories, and also the family cannot lay him to rest until the investigation is complete. So it's unfortunate, Madam Speaker, that the country is going through this. Seriously, where are we heading? To the dogs? I'm saying it with bitterness, Madam Speaker. 20 lives have been lost within 1 month, Madam Speaker, and nothing has come front. No explanation so far has come front for Kenyans to understand why this.
Thank you, Senator Hamida. Honorable Senators, I now propose the question that pursuant to Standing Order 37, the Senate do adjourn to discuss a definite matter of urgent national importance, namely the rising cases of violent murder in the country, mainly targeting young women and girls, the most recent being the murder of 3 young women in Isli on 22nd October 2024, Dahabu Daud Said, Amina Abdi Rashid Dahil, and Nasieba Abdi Muhammad, and a 23-year-old Ms. Seth Nyakeo in Thika, Kiambu County on 14th October 2024. The motion is now open for contribution by senators. I call upon Senator Keroche Tabitha, Nakuru County, to contribute.
Madam Speaker, sir, I thank you for giving me this opportunity to contribute to this motion.
Senator Tabitha, is it possible for Madam Speaker, sir, to be in the same sentence?
My apologies, Madam Speaker.
You have to choose one.
Madam Speaker, my apologies. So, Madam Speaker, Madam, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to contribute to this motion. And I want to thank Senator Eddie for bringing up this motion. I want to condemn, take this opportunity and condemn the adoption that is happening in this country, that are happening in this country, and the femicide murders that are happening in this country. It is sad that we have security in place and we seem to be helpless. We look up like this, we are helpless when murders of our young girls is happening in this country. I want to take this opportunity and send my sincere condolence to all the families, parents that have lost their loved ones. I know how painful it is, and especially losing a young person whose future was very bright, because you can look at all these children, they were all in their universities, and you can look at them, they look very bright children. We really want to ask our security to save us from the tortures that the parents and the families are going through. Even the process of finding the justice for those children is a torture. So why would we as a country just sit there so helplessly and allow such crimes to happen in our own country when we have the capacity to arrest such heinous or such murders? So for me, is just, Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, sir, is to urge our government, the one we elected with a lot of love, to ensure that they can look and see what is not happening in our security system, so that if we have the wrong people in the security system, to remove them. Because there is no way we can allow parents. We've seen them in the national television. We've seen the murders that is happening in this country. And I look at them, and I feel for them, and I wonder, even the process for them even to try and start looking for the justice for their children, how it tortures somebody. And what we can only pray for is to pray to God to give them strength so that they can be able to fight for their justices. Because even in the courts, trying to go to the courts, look for the justices, that is what I know. It is the most tedious process that a parent can go through or a family member can be taken to. So ours is only, how can it be prevented? I don't think there is much that we as senators we can ask, is on how it can be prevented. We cannot sit down now here and watch when such murders is happening to our children, and we just continue allowing this. I think we as women, it will come a point now where we'll lay down our tools and say, now I think we need to stand for the rights for women, and especially our young women, who we know, when we see that the whatever we are looking at.
You'll have 1 minute. I know you've gone through a hard experience on this one.
Yes.
Just finish.
Yes, we know how hard it is for even a woman to rise to a certain, to a higher level. So when we see our young women being killed like this, it is like we are trying to cut we are trying to show that women cannot reach to a certain level. Because we are not seeing many other people, I mean, the side of the boys. We don't see them, we're not saying that they should be dying, but we are not seeing them being killed, like the way we are seeing the girls are being killed. It is frightening, and it is shocking, and we are not stand again as women leaders and watch when this thing is happening. It is frightening, it is sad, and I can tell you for free, for sure, that those parents, what they are going through and what they are to go through to get rid of or even to forget what they have been tortured to, it will take a long time. And even it will damage the progress of those.
Thank you, Honorable Senator. Senator Montet Betty.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, allow me to first pass my condolences to the families of who lately have lost their loved ones. Surely it's painful. What we hear, the stories we are getting, like what Senator Sifuna said today, that it was really very difficult to watch the bodies of those ladies who were murdered just very recently. That was Madam Wario, the daughter Amina, and the niece. I want to pass my condolences to the family. This must be a very difficult time. Recently, also, a nominated MC from Kirinyaga lost her daughter, Madam Njeri lost her daughter Seth, and also what is in the news lately, the murder of the Wells Fargo HR boss, Willis. I pass my condolences to the families. May their souls rest in peace. Madam Speaker, I think this is something which the whole nation has to tackle. I believe as much as these people are criminals, these are issues which maybe churches and mosques should be encouraged to talk about, so that Kenyans can also now try and have some sense and some respect for life. Because even the way the murders are being carried, it is so saddening, because it's where human beings have become animals, that they don't value life anymore. What we are seeing every day. In fact, I wonder how many other murders are not being highlighted in the news, because what we see is what comes to the news, but I'm sure there are many others which are happening, which are not highlighted, that maybe even the family members have never come to know that their loved ones have been murdered or they've been killed, because the kind of life we live in Nairobi, you find most of people live on their own and their families maybe are far away. So sometimes by the time you come to realize that your kin is missing, it could take time. So, Madam Speaker, this is an issue as the police should be told that they have to up the game. I think also the society should be something we should have a discussion as a society in this nation, because this thing is now getting out of hand. Every day, every week, what we hear, sometimes back, I heard a senator say that it's so disheartening to watch news, because anytime you are watching news on our local televisions, what you see is murders here and there, that a body was found, somebody has been murdered, somebody is missing, somebody has been abducted, and then by the time they are found, they are dead. So this is an issue of national importance, something which should be discussed in all sectors by all the arms of government. Let's come together. Let's see what is happening. Let's see what we can do to improve. Whether it is the police, let's discuss and see what can be done. If it is the justice arm, let us see whether these cases which come up of those people who are killing or the murderers when they are court, these cases can really be hastened so that people can be deterred, or they know that if you are caught, you're going to be caught, and very soon your time is going to be up. So, Madam Speaker, what I would say is it's a matter of national importance. I want to thank the senator who has brought up this matter, and I want to urge that let us not stop it here. Let us put it out there to the nation. Let it be a discussion that we all hold and see what we can do to avoid and also to prevent this killing. I know they're taking care of young girls and women because we are weaker, but Madam Speaker, if people know that wherever you are, let's say like the Isili, the Isili murder, the way it was committed, if people know that there are CCTVs all over, that whatever you do will be followed and it will be a matter of time before they catch up with you, then I'm sure these murders are going to reduce. Because what is happening is not interesting at all. It's sad for our nation, it's sad for us women, and it's very disheartening as a nation. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Yes, thank you, Senator. Senator Abbas Sheikh Mohammed.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I think I want to thank Senator Eddy for bringing this issue, because this is actually a matter, very weighty, that needs attention of everybody in this country. Honorable Speaker, of late, Kenya is experiencing a wave of murders and abductions and arbitrary arrests. It is now become difficult. Who is doing this kind of business? Is it the government, agents of the government of security? Is it the thugs? This country has Kenyans have been very, very kind. You know, we are surrounded by many countries that have a lot of security issues. They have fallen governments all over. There are no proper government. And many people have found their way to Kenya. And they were able to access our identity cards, our passports, own properties. And nobody has even vetted these guys. We have